Hi everyone, it's Stephanie. I'm here today with a dyeing video. Today I am going to be dyeing this fleece. It is, I believe, called Masham, Masham or Ham. Anyway, I got it from Namaste Farms, and it's definitely not a soft wool, but it does have some beautiful lock structure that I want to hold on to. So what I'm going to do today is I've got everything set up, and I'm going to be kettle dyeing this fleece right here. So I'm going to add probably 3 colors to my dye pot, and I'm going to just walk you through the process. So the first thing you're going to need is a large stock pot, and you want to use stainless steel with this because other metals can react with the dyes, and you don't want that. You're going to need dye, you're going to need fleece, and you're going to need a type of binding agent, which is what we use to bind the dye to the wool. And that is just plain old white vinegar. That's what I'm using. You're also going to need some type of heat. So that's really all you need to begin dyeing protein fibers, just a few things. I have a few extra things though. I do have some measuring spoons here so that I can measure out a little bit of the dye. I have some chopsticks because those are great for pushing. Once I've got the fiber in here, they're great for just kind of pushing the fiber down or gently lifting it out of the dye pot. And I also have this potato masher, and it is used in much the same way. I'm going to use it to gently push the fiber down into the water. Now what I have here is water and it is about up to here on the pot. So the pot is a little over halfway full, and so that's about 20 cups of water, and I have about 1 cup of vinegar in it. Typically what I would do also while I'm waiting for the pot to heat up is I would be soaking this fleece in a combination of water, lukewarm water, and vinegar. But what I've found recently is that the dye sometimes absorbs better if the fiber is only damp. So this, I just finished washing it to get all of the lanolin and as much of the vegetable matter out of it that I could, and I spun it until it's about, it's probably a good 85% dry. So I have not put any vinegar on this fleece or anything, so it's going to be kind of an experiment, but we'll see what happens together. So what I'm doing right now is just heating up the kettle here. This is going to be called a kettle dyeing method, and I'm going to wait until the water here starts steaming, until steam starts rising off of the water. We do not want a rolling boil or even a boil at all. We want the water to remain relatively still because we do not want to agitate the fiber. Remember, heat plus fiber and water, and heat plus fiber plus agitation means felting. And that's what we do not want to happen. We do not want to felt this beautiful fiber. So now, as far as the colors that I'm using, I'm going to be using 2 from Jacquard. One is turquoise, one is a silver gray, and I am going to use one from Cushing's, which is Robin's Egg Blue. That's my favorite color, Robin's Egg Blue. And so what I want is just a variation in color all throughout here. So I'm going to start with the lightest color, and that is going to be Robin's Egg Blue. Then once that is exhausted in the dye pot, I will move on to adding the silver, and then finally I will add the turquoise. So I'm going in order of lightest to darkest. I might also add a deep purple or something like that in there, but I'm not sure. I'm going to wait and see what the fiber looks like as I go. So that's it for now. Now I'm just waiting for the water to heat up, and I will be back with you once it does. Okay, the water is ready now. Do you see how there's steam coming out, but it's not boiling? It's right at that point, right before it boils. You can see over here, if I can get in here, you see how it's popping a little bit, but the water isn't moving around and agitating. So that's what you want. Now what I'm going to do is to add the dye. I have here half a teaspoon, but I'm not going to add that much. I just don't have my quarter teaspoon. I'm going to try and set this down and film what I'm doing. I'm going to add a little bit less. I'm going to add a little bit less than half a teaspoon because I want this robin's egg blue to be really, really light. Sorry about not being able to see. I'm trying to do this one-handed and hold the camera at the same time. Doesn't always work. Okay, so here's what I've got. About a quarter teaspoon, maybe a little bit less. So I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to dump that into the dye pot and stir it. Isn't that gorgeous? That color is so pretty. And so you see, you really don't need a whole lot of dye in the first place because that quarter teaspoon, now look at the water. You can see that nice, deep, rich color. I'm actually going to use one of my chopsticks and stir it a little bit better because you see down here, I can see some of it's not dissolved yet. I'm going to give the dye a second to dissolve. Now for those of you who saw my tail spinning video, this is not the method I used to dye those locks. I didn't have any locks washed and ready to go when I wanted to film today, so that's why we're doing a kettle dyeing video instead of lock dyeing, which I will show you. I've got a fleece that I want to use for lock dyeing, but it's just not ready yet. So we'll do that at a later time. So now it's time to get this fleece, the whole thing. And remember, I did not let this one soak before putting it in. And I'm holding it way up here, as you can see. I'm holding it far above the pot. It's not in yet, but I'm going to gradually, taking my time, lower it into the pot. Because what this does by going slowly is it allows these, look at that, that's a beautiful light blue. It allows these pieces that are going in first to soak up the dye and become slightly darker. So you get a better variation in the tones that you're dyeing. And now I'm just letting everything go in. This is when your potato masher comes in handy, because remember, we don't want to agitate anything. So we're just gonna press this down. And what we're looking for, oh, a little vegetable matter there, but that's okay. What we're looking for is for the dye to be exhausted, meaning that the wool has soaked up all of the dye that we've put in the pot. And that's why I'm only using a tiny bit. So what we're going to do is pull this back, and you see how much lighter the water is? So we're going to let this sit for just a few minutes, and you see some of this right here, still white. That's okay with me. I like that. I think it adds another contrast and another beautiful color. So we're going to let this sit for, and you see over here, right here, you can see it's still, there's still some blue in there. So that blue I'll be looking at when I come back to check to see whether the dye is exhausted. So I'm going to step away from the dye pot right now. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to turn it over or anything like that. Instead, I'm just going to let it sit here. I might put the lid on to just help keep the heat in and help the dye absorb just a little bit better. And so I'll give it about 5 minutes and then I'll be back. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes, so I'm going to check the water to make sure that the fiber has absorbed all of the dye. So I'm just going to get one of my chopsticks and I'm going to pull back and look at that. The water is clear. That means that the fiber has absorbed all of the dye that it's going to. Clear over here too. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to slightly and very, very gently turn this. You don't have to do this part, but I just want to have different parts of the fleece exposed for different parts of the process. There. So that's as turned as it's going to get. And this time I'm going to add the jacquard silver gray. And I'm going to add the same amount, just about a 1/4 teaspoon, because I love this beautiful light blue and I don't want anything that is overpowering. So again, about a 1/4 teaspoon, okay? And I'm going to put it a little bit over here, a little bit over here, and I'm going to put some of it just right on top of the fiber. And now we're going to go and press down gently again, no agitating the fiber. And you see that color just sort of coming through here? It's beautiful, isn't it? I've always loved grays and blues in combination. I think they're gorgeous. I'm going to come over here, let some of the fiber or some of the color go in this way. We're going to push this down. So we might not end up with a lot of white showing, but that's okay. I'm betting we'll still have a few little places that are white. So now let's take a look at the dye, what's in the dye pot. You see the water is dark-ish. Okay, I'm going to push that down a little bit. Push that down. And this one. And we're going to let this sit now for about 5 minutes. It probably won't even need 5 minutes, honestly, because when we checked the water, which we're going to do over here too, this is a little bit darker over here. You see, it's much clearer than it was when we checked the blue fiber. So we will be back in about 5 minutes and we'll check it again. Okay, so it's been a little over 5 minutes and the water started to boil, so I have turned off the heat and taken it off of the burner because I don't want to agitate the wool again. So let's go ahead and check the water, and as you can see, it is clear. I know the camera's fogging up, but it is definitely clear there and clear. So we can go ahead and add our other colors. And I've decided I'm going to turn this just slightly again, just a little bit. You'll notice I'm being very, very gentle, just using the chopstick. Okay, there we go. And I have changed my mind about the turquoise. I feel like turquoise would be too much green in this mix. So instead, I'm going to add one of another brand of dye I have. It's called Country Classics, and it is Brilliant Blue. And I think that that will add a nice depth of color here. And I might also add another Country Classics called Deep Purple. In fact, I think I will. And I'm probably going to just add them both to this dye pot because I can combine purple and blue, because on the color wheel they're not going to give us brown. Okay, so for this Brilliant Blue I'm going to yet again add about the same amount, about a little more, a 1/4 teaspoon, and I'm just going to sprinkle it on here, sprinkling it around over here too. And see, I really like that. I think that's really pretty, and it's going to add a nice shade to the fiber. And as you can see again, once again, now the water is dark. Not quite as dark over here, so I'm going to push back the fiber, and you can see the blue coming in. Okay. So over here, I'll put this down. Excuse the noises in the background. We've got people snacking and eating lunch here. And I think what I'm going to do is take this side right here, and this is where I might add a little bit of deep purple, just because I think it would be pretty. So normally I like to stick to about 3 colors because I like to do things in odd numbers when I'm doing any type of visual art, but I think that this would be pretty if we add some of the purple. Okay, so Country Classics Deep Purple, that's what I'm going to add over in this general area here of the dye pot. Now, you would never want to add mix colors like red and green in your dye pot. Well, I shouldn't say never, because there are different ways you can do it. But just be aware that you're going to end up with some muddy colors if you don't do it carefully. Okay, so again, about another 1/4 teaspoon. And we're just going to go through right here. Now this might take a little bit longer to absorb because we've got a 1/2 teaspoon of dye in here, whereas before we only had a 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, so let's leave this, let's let it sit and come back probably in about 10 minutes and see where we're at. We should be finished by then. Okay, we are back to see how much water has been absorbed, or how much dye has been exhausted by the fiber. And you can see it's still hot, but look, now adding the vinegar I think helps speed along the process, and just letting it sit also, letting the fiber sit. Oh, look at that purple, isn't that gorgeous? So I think, yep, even over here on the purple side, everything, the water is, I think, as clear as it's going to get. And that's what you want. You want the water to be clear because then you know that your fiber has absorbed everything. And you can go ahead and begin the process of rinsing. But because this is still, as you can see, steaming, I'm probably going to let this sit a little longer before I rinse it. So I am on my way to work, but what I'll probably do is go to work and then come back. I'll just let this sit the way it is, and it'll be completely cool by the time I get back from work, and then I will rinse it then. Hopefully the lighting will be good enough. If not, we will just tackle that tomorrow morning. Okay, so I am back. It is now several hours later. The water is completely cool, no heat at all, and you can see that the dye has all been absorbed by the fiber. Now, you wouldn't have to leave it this long. I just had to go to work and had to leave it sitting here. But so now the next thing to do is to take this over to the sink and rinse it. We're doing that because we want to make sure that any dye that has not been properly absorbed is rinsed off, because you don't want to have your dye running on anything else that you're making. So I'm going to be over here at the sink and I'm going to rinse it. Let me try and set up my phone so that you can see, or try and do this one-handed. And you see the water is nice and clear. So I'm just going to let this go into the sink, and this will be our first real look at the color. So here's what we've got, which I think is beautiful. So you can see we have all kinds of different colors in here. We've got this nice deep purple. We have some bright blue, the lighter blue in here. The only color I'm not really seeing is the gray, but that's all right. Looks like we've got plenty of other beautiful colors. So what I'm going to do real quick is rinse this off, and then I will dry as much of it as I can. I have a spinner that spins out as much water as we can get out, and I will show you what it looks like after that. Okay, so here we are. It is out of the dye pot. I've put it through my, I think it's called a Nina soft spin, and it has the majority of the water out. It probably still needs to dry overnight, but by tomorrow morning it should be dry. I'm out here on my porch because I think the lighting is better, but I'm really happy with the way it came out. Here's the robin's egg blue, and we have a little bit of the gray in through here and here. Next time I do this, I might just do robin's egg blue and gray because I think that would make a really pretty subtle combination. But then we've got the darker blue here going into the purple. The purple's here. So I'm not sure what I'll make with this yet, but I could pull off individual locks like this, and I could use those in a felting project. Here's a really nice set of gorgeous locks right there. Could use all of those for something. What I might do is just spin this and leave the ends like this out and see what comes out. And I'm sure that I will make a video. Look at this. That's that light robin's egg blue, and then we go into some purples. It's just gorgeous all the way around. Let me turn it over so you can see the other side too, so you can see all of it. And no white. I wouldn't have been upset if there had been white, but I like that it looks like all of the dye was absorbed throughout the entire bit of fiber. So this is what we ended up with. I'm trying to get nice clear shots for you so you can see all of the color variations. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it's gorgeous. Could be more mermaid hair. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will have more dyeing tutorials coming up because I dye in a variety of ways. I don't just kettle dye. So I will film dip dyeing, I will film dyeing in the oven, using the microwave, I'll film doing speckles, all of that. So anyway, I hope this was helpful for you. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and let me know if you'd like to see more dyeing videos. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy fibering.